Okay, welcome everyone. This is In Conversations with Chana. I'm Chana Weisberg, editor of The Jewish Woman, and this is in our series of In Conversations where we have amazing guests to hear about their life. I'm joined tonight with Chava Cassandra Clark, and Matt, is it Iofi?
Ayofi.
Iofi, okay. And they're here to tell us how they each found each other at Chabad. Both of them have an incredible story. And we're going to start with Chava. Cassandra will tell us a little about her story, and then we'll merge into Matt's story and how this incredible divine providence that brought them both together and brought this couple to, I understand you're getting married in about a month's time. Is that
March
right?
26th, yeah.
Wow, we're counting down. Okay. So they're getting married very soon. They met at Chabad. They found each other at Chabad. And they had, though, quite an interesting trek till they got there. Chava, let's start with you. If you can tell us a little about your story.
Yeah. So I converted about 3 years ago. I did 2 conversions, actually. I did a conservative and then found my way to an Orthodox conversion. And I would say my conversion process was a very positive experience. And I ended up moving to Brooklyn.
What made you decide to convert to Judaism? What pulled you?
Yeah. So when I was younger, I had an experience where I got really sick, like heart disease. And I was from the time I was 12 to 13. And then I almost died, but
Wow.
so I'm just laughing because it's a little bit uncomfortable. But I made it through, and the doctor who ended up like diagnosing my condition, and he specialized in like childhood heart disease. He was Jewish. He was from South Africa, and then I remember reading more about Judaism, but I didn't realize that people converted to Judaism or switched religions at all. And I remember having these thoughts about, because I mean, I had just been through this like experience, and I had these thoughts about like, life and meaning and just God and like how, like what it all means. And
so you were pretty young. You were 12, 13 at the time, you said?
Yeah.
And I guess your experience made you really think about life a lot more than a normal 12-year-old would think about it.
Yeah, especially because I was home a lot. So because I couldn't go to school. So I had a lot of time to just like think.
Sure.
And from the time I was little, I did certain things that, like, for example, like not eating cheeseburgers or pork meatballs, like things like that. That like looking back, it was kind of like, okay, like something was always there.
So you don't know why you just felt that need to avoid those foods?
Yeah. There were other things that I ate. Like I didn't grow up keeping kosher, but like specific things I would be like, oh, like I'm not going to touch that, Yeah. And then eventually in high school, I started looking into other religions and really got like exposed to other things. And I was interested in Judaism because I had my experience, and then I also had a Jewish art teacher, and I am an artist, so I spent a lot of time in the art room, and we just talked a lot about religion and everything. And then my mom actually suggested I look into converting to Judaism, so she probably always saw something there.
So how does your family how do they relate to the fact that you converted?
Yeah, they're really accepting of it, which is really good, because I think my process would have been a lot more difficult emotionally if they were upset, or because I'm very close with my family. So I was really happy that they supported. And yeah.
So what did you find about Judaism that you found so inspirational that you felt like you wanted to change? I mean, you've basically changed your whole lifestyle around.
Yeah.
You're observant now. You keep Shabbat, you keep kosher, you keep all the laws. What made you feel the need to completely change around your whole, like what inspired you?
Yeah. So at first, what drew me in at first was kind of the things that draw people to any religion, I think, like, relationship with God, and um, like love for God and all of that. And then what drew me to Judaism specifically was a few things. Like, part of it was um, like the mitzvahs I really loved. And also, I, I wanted to join a religion that I felt I could, I don't know how to describe it, like a religion that I felt that I would be happy, like being like trying to be an ideal. Like in Christianity, the ideal Catholic is someone who's a nun, who's like gonna kind of be by themselves. Um, and I wanted, like, I was like, if I'm gonna be part of something, I want to do it right, I guess. um, and what was I going to say? Sorry. I, yeah, I just got interested in specific mitzvahs at first, and then became interested in other things. And, some things that were hard to understand at first, I just kind of studied them more. And yeah.
Wow, interesting. Is there a special mitzvah that you relate to the most, or that you like the most?
So I really like lighting Shabbat candles. And what else? I like sneas.
Hmm.
And I've started getting
Yes,
into.
for our readers is modesty, because some of our listeners might not understand. Go
Oh,
ahead.
okay. And I've recently gotten into baking challah myself, like trying to get into the habit, because usually I just buy it. And, since I'm getting married, I want to start making it more.
Wow.
So.
It's interesting. You said you liked Judaism because the ideal of marriage is something that it's not like the ideal of being a nun or being a priest, being alone, but you had no idea at that point that you would meet your wonderful future
Yeah.
husband, Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So
yeah, what? Sorry.
so let's hear a little about that, Matt. You want to tell us a little about your story, and then how you can both talk about how the two of you met.
Sure. So I'm from a Russian background. As many people, from a Russian background. I'm from a very secular family. I was an only child. I didn't.
Were you born in Russia, or you were
I
born
was
in?
born in the U.S. I was born. My father was not Jewish. My mother's family is as secular as they basically come. We didn't really have much in the way. We knew we were Jewish, and we understood we were Jewish, and we understood that meant something. We didn't quite know what it meant, and we weren't observant in any traditional sense of that word. Like,
Right.
I mean, to me, I knew the holidays. I didn't know what the holidays meant. I just knew, Jews celebrate these holidays and we're Jews, but I didn't connect to them really in any way.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And when did that change?
and so I was about 23 or 24 when I got a job at a bank. It was located in Park Slope, which is relatively close to Crown Heights. So, I had some Chabad customers, and they would occasionally invite me, for Shabbat, because I look Jewish. I have a Jewish last name. So they would, occasionally, hey, why don't you come over for Shabbat? I was like, well, why am I going to come over to this guy's house? I don't even know him. I
Right.
don't know anything more about him than his name. Like, why is this weirdo inviting me to his house? I never really connected to it,
Right.
But
Yeah, that
then,
sounds strange. Just come over to my house. Have
yeah,
some
yeah,
with me.
because it's
I just
Chavez,
met you at the
it's like,
bank.
what,
Right.
and but it turned out that somebody had asked me, the Weissfishes had asked me, Nachum, what may or may not have been a client there, But at any rate, so he invited me. It was at that time it was going to be Pesach, and I'd never celebrated. It hit me that I'd never celebrated Pesach. I didn't really know much about Pesach. I mean, I knew you ate matzah and drank wine, but that's all I knew about it. I didn't know what the meaning of it was. I didn't know the story of Pesach. I didn't know anything about the plates and all the food that belongs on it. It was all like a mystery to me. So it was just kind of, I guess, curiosity, or that led me to just kind of on instinct. I said, yes, sure, I'd love to come, and celebrate with you. So I come up there, and initially it's a heck of an experience, because it's like, okay, like imagine somebody, I'd never really didn't know anything about Judaism, and here I'm coming into this house. There's pictures of the Rebbe everywhere. They had at that time, now they have 11 kids. They had 9 then.
Oh, wow.
And so this was like 9 kids to me was like some.
Did you know that when you went there?
I knew they had a lot of kids. I didn't know the exact number.
Right.
But just to see it, like 9 kids.
Sure.
I had a friend growing up. He had 3 siblings, so I got 4 kids, and I'd go over there for dinner sometimes. 4 kids, a lot of kids,
Right.
So that was my understanding of what a large family was. So.
Right. So 4 kids, never 9.
It was intense, It was like
Sure.
the pictures of the rabbis, all the rabbis, that they had pictures of, and and all of the scripture, and all of the and so many kids at the table. It was kind of like it was an incredible experience, but it was a very meaningful, emotional experience for me, because I didn't even know about all the foods that belong on the plate and all of that. I didn't know any of the prayers. I didn't know the questions the kids are supposed to ask. I never went through that. I didn't even know that's kind of what a Seder looks like. And
Right.
so I started to think, like, this is something that I want to connect to. I mean, I'm Jewish. If you'd asked me, I would have told you I was Jewish, right? But I didn't really know anything about Judaism. I didn't know about my heritage, the religion that I would have identified with. So I caught a bug then. I started to come every Shabbat. And at that time, I was working in a bank. Bankers' hours are inflexible. So at that time, I was working on Saturdays. I would come on Friday nights. I would stay till Saturday morning, and then I would leave Saturday morning, go to work. And
So
that went on.
You stayed over in their house.
Yeah, and they let me. In the morning, I would just leave and go to work. And this went on for about 6 or so months, until I wound up getting a different job. I wound up. A job came through for the city, and then the city is much more, accommodating. So, they were no problem. You want to keep Shabbos, just, we'll work around your schedule. You'll work more this day, or, we'll make it work. So, so I was able to, find a schedule that worked. So I was able to keep Shabbos, and I was able to, I gradually went to keeping, full Shabbos, and I've been keeping Shabbos for 4 or 5 years now.
Wow, amazing. So it all started with being invited to a Passover Seder.
Yes.
Yes. And then afterwards being invited Friday night for their meal. I guess you got close to them, that you felt comfortable to stay by them?
Yes. Yeah, they had a basement I could stay in. And
Wow.
and they kept me there a very long time. And it's kind of very interesting how Hava and I's path kind of intersected a little bit for a long time before we actually met. It had turned out, that was a few years ago, it had turned out that the Weissfish's oldest daughter had a child. So they have 2 married daughters now. Their oldest daughter had a child, so I couldn't stay. They had to give her the basement, her and her husband. So they couldn't host me anymore. And at that time, they had a friend, Hesky Siegel, who he had a spare room in his spare bed in his basement, and he told me I'm welcome to stay there. And I wound up staying there with him for every Shabbos for almost a year.
Wow.
And at that time, he knew how it was just the beginning of her conversion process. And he had me in mind for her. So he kept hyping me up. She worked in his classroom. So he kept, hyping me up to her.
She worked in where? You worked where?
We taught together. So Rabbi Siegel was the head teacher, and then I was his assistant.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
And
apparently he was hyping me up, and yeah. But at that time it didn't turn out. I guess I've decided that she wasn't really ready. At that point in time to date.
Yeah.
So
how long ago was that?
About 4 years ago.
3-4 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you decided you weren't ready to date. I guess you wanted to get
Yeah.
more stable in
Well,
what you were doing.
Yeah, well, I was also in the conversion process, and I just didn't think it was the best idea.
Right. That
And
makes
then
sense.
and then when we got engaged, Rabbi Siegel was like so happy. He was like, "I've thought of this for years."
Oh, wow.
I think we both texted him separately. Right?
Yeah, we did. And actually he came up with his wife to our L'chaim, actually. Yeah, it was nice.
Wow. So how did you actually both meet? Let's hear that.
That was at the Chabad of Brooklyn College.
Okay.
It had turned out I was learning I'm undertaking to learn the entire Kitzur Shulchan Aruch.
Wow, that's the whole code of Jewish law.
That I met on JDate, on JNet. JNet, yeah. And he had just kind of offhandedly, he knew
So just for our viewers, what is tell us a little about JNet.
So JNet is wonderful. It's an organization where, like, you can, if you're interested in learning anything, I mean, basically anything from, more advanced stuff to just the Hebrew alphabet, anything, you can, express your interest, and they will set you up with, somebody that, will volunteer to teach you. And it's truly tremendous. It's how I learned to read Hebrew phonetically, and then I decided that I wanted to learn the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. I reached out, and they were able to set me up with somebody that I'm able to learn with every week, and it's tremendous. Yeah, tremendous things that they do.
So how long have you been learning with JNet?
On and off, a few years now.
Wow, amazing.
When something, I catch a bug for something, like I really wanted to learn to read Hebrew phonetically. I can, I just wanted to be able to say it in Hebrew,
Sure.
At least the Shema, something,
Wow.
to be able to read the Hebrew letters and say it. And then
amazing.
I learned to read Hebrew, and then I really wanted to go through the entire Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, and so I'm undertaking to do that. That's going to take some time.
Beautiful.
But, yeah. So he'd mentioned to me he knew the rabbi at the Chabad there at Brooklyn College. So
your JNet partner, the person you were studying with, mentioned that.
He mentioned the Chabad at Brooklyn College. Why don't you go check it out? He knew the rabbi over there, Rabbi Rachik. So he said, I'll put in a good word for you. Why don't you just come down, see what it's about? You might meet some people your age. So I showed up there, and actually at the event, I ran into an old friend from high school.
Wow. Small world.
And yeah, I hadn't seen her since, in over a decade. And, we were like really, catching up. And she had mentioned to me that there was going to be another event, coming up, and she was going to be there. So she asked me if I wanted to come. So sure. So I wound up going with her to that event. And then there was, at that event, I learned that there was going to be a Sukkot meal coming up. And so then I went with her to the Sukkot meal, and that's actually where I met Chava, at that Sukkot, the first night. So,
Chava, how come you were there? What made you come?
Yeah, so I usually go to Chabad for holidays and stuff like that, because I don't have Jewish family, so it's I'm not like going home, and so that's why I was there. And they also live like really close by to me, and I almost didn't go that night, I remember. And then I saw Matt, and I kind of knew, I don't know, like, and yeah, so, and also Anessa, our friend, who was there that night, Matt's old friend from high school. Me and her are like good friends now. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, she was our shadchan. She was encouraging us to get together.
Yeah.
And then you told that first person who thought of it. What did you say his name was? Seagal, Rabbi Seagal.
Yeah, Hesky Seagal. Yeah.
You told him, and he was so happy that he had thought of it originally.
Yeah, because I texted him because we like kept in touch, like me and him and his wife, and I was like, oh, like I'm engaged. This is the guy, and he was like, oh, I have to talk to you right away. And then I got worried, honestly, because I didn't know what to think. And then he was really happy. So.
Wow, incredible. So tell us what your future looks like. You're getting married in a few weeks' time.
Yeah.
And what would you like? Like, what do you see for your future?
So I'm finishing grad school, and hopefully find a job. I'm going for art education, and also hopefully children. Nice.
Yeah, we definitely want kids. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, and we'd like to host people too.
Yes.
Here, so in Brooklyn.
It always meant a lot to me. All the times I was in Crown Heights, it's like a unique experience. Like somebody that you don't really even know that well. Hey, come over. Let's have come over for a meal. Like oh, you need a place to stay? Sure, you can stay on my couch. That sort of thing. It's something that's sort of uniquely Jewish, and I really want to like give back in that sense. Like if we have somebody can stay here, I certainly want to host people who can stay here, host people, for Shabbat on like, kind of an open Shabbos table type of thing. We'd like to host people because we kind of want to give back. I always felt very strongly that, I was so impressed by all the people that, out of the goodness of their heart, put me up or, or had or just a meal, and all the wonderful experiences I had from that. So I definitely want to share that. And I know from personal experience, it's not easy. I living with my mom then, she didn't keep Shabbos, so it's obviously very difficult. If you're at home and she's turning lights on and off and going about her day,
of course, that must be very hard.
It's very difficult. Yeah. So, but fortunately, I've had been fortunate that I was able to buy a condo. And able to stay here at Shabbosim, and now Cassie's going to be moving in pretty soon. So,
oh wow, wow. What does your mom think about your change in lifestyle, Matt?
Well, like most, it's a little bit hard for her. Like most Russian Jews, they don't have much of a religious connection to Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
Like for instance, my mom, my grandmother, even my grandmother's parents, were not. They really weren't religious in any way. But if you go back, my grandmother's grandparents were religious, and their parents were religious, and their parents were religious. So
I'm sure there was a rabbi in there.
for centuries, sure. They were very religious. It's only relatively recently, that like whenever I put on tefillin, it really hits me that like somebody, the connection to my ancestry. I'm like, there's no doubt hundreds and hundreds of years ago in some village in Russia or Belarus, an ancestor of mine was putting on tefillin saying these same prayers and with putting on tefillin that looked a lot like these. It's incredible. That's really very powerful. Yeah.
Really incredible. Wow. Yeah. That's really something.
Yeah.
You said you're planning on having children. What do you want to teach your children when you have these children, God willing? What do you want them to know that you didn't know?
I want them to grow up with a sense that they're Jewish and that all the wonderful history that Judaism has. I'd like them to know the meaning of it, which I didn't really know growing up. I'd like them to, learn Torah and and know the mitzvot. Hopefully, keep the mitzvot, but at the very least, know the mitzvot. Right. Just the most important thing to impart is how is the heritage and the history, and how long how many generations back, our family has been Jewish. It's truly incredible.
Wow, it's something. So it's interesting that you met each other at Chabad. Do you think that other people find each other at Chabad? Other people find their soulmates at Chabad?
Sure.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think I've heard that some Chabad houses have like a Met at Chabad wall. The one at Brooklyn College is a newer Chabad, so I don't think they
Maybe
have
I think we might be the first edition, but I have been to other or heard of other Chabads where they have a whole wall of people who have met there.
There, amazing.
Yeah, and they do such a good job organizing events that certainly people, they meet there. They do a great job of Chabad. One of the wonderful things about Chabad is the outreach and everything that they do for outreach. For you'll see at these Chabad events, it'll be anything from from people been from for a very long time or since birth, and then people who really are new to Judaism and just sort of exploring. So you'll run the whole gamut at these events.
Wow, beautiful. Is there anything that you want to give advice to other people who are maybe going on your journey, both of you, like on your respective journeys, of what they should, I'm sure there's times that it's been challenging. I'm sure there's times that you weren't sure where you were going. Would you like to give any advice to people who might be on that journey right now who are watching this?
Which journey? The becoming religious or?
Yeah. And converting, whichever part of it you'd like to address.
Yeah, the advice I would give, I would say to not give up. And I always felt like during my conversion process, right when it was like, okay, everything's falling apart, nothing's going to work out, was the exact moment that Hashem would just pull everything together. Like when I met with the Beis Din, the final meeting, they didn't get back to me for like a week. And so in my head, I was like, oh my God, it's not going to work out. And then at the end, everything happened so fast, which is also kind of like when I met Matt, I was a little bit like, okay, I guess I'm not getting married. It's okay. And then and then I met Matt the same year. So yeah. So
why did you think you weren't going to get married? You just didn't know?
I just wasn't sure if there was, I don't know, like dating can be a little bit, it's weird. It's like a lonely process, even though you're meeting so many people.
Sure.
And I guess it's hard. It's also hard to date when you converted, it can be hard. So I was just a little bit like, okay, like, I don't know if there's anyone out there for me. And eventually I was like, I'm leaving it up to God. I guess that's the advice I would give is like, try, do your best. But at the end of the day, it's God does what he's going to do,
Yeah. Sounds like, Chava, you have a lot of faith and trust in God.
Thank you.
Sounds like he really led you to the right places in the right times.
Yeah.
Matt, what about you? What would your advice be?
There are so many tremendous resources that are available to you. So just, if you're interested to learn something, there's JNet. If you're, if you want to, if you want to meet Jewish people, show up at any shul and just, say that, just tell people like, I'm new to Judaism. You will be inundated you will have so many invitations to meals. You won't know, your calendar will be full. There's, and get to know, a family or families. And it's a tremendous resource whenever I have a, question or something's on my mind, to be able to have, a few families that I can talk to about it. It's really tremendous. There's so many possibilities out there, and there's no place I've ever been to that's as welcoming as Chabad. And it really doesn't matter what stage you're in. You can always find resources and find people who can help to guide you.
Beautiful. Thank you. So Chava told us what her favorite mitzvah is. What's yours, Matt?
To fill in for sure. Because when I worked at the bank, it was very close to the Chabad of Park Slope, and so they would send someone every Friday to put on tefillin. And it was something I really looked forward to. I'd be, sitting there and thinking, when are the tefillin people going to come? And so then when I was no longer working at the bank and I was working for the city, and I was no longer in a location where I'm close to a Chabad, and I wasn't putting on tefillin, I sensed some kind of a hole. Something's missing on from my routine. So then I got my own tefillin, and now I'm going to put on my own tefillin. So it's really and it's just tremendous to think about, like, how long people have been using tefillin, how long Jews have been using tefillin that look just like this,
Wow,
saying the same prayers. It's actually really incredible. It was one of my greatest experiences was being in Israel at the wall, and just thinking about all the when at Shabbos for the dancing, and I'm just kind of like dancing with all these people. I don't know them.
Right.
They're all from different countries. That a lot of them don't speak my language, don't look like me, but we're all just sort of dancing because we're Jewish. It's really something tremendous.
It's an incredible bond. Wow.
Anybody, and I would certainly say to anybody, I would recommend Birthright. Was a life-changing experience for both of us, I would say.
Yeah.
You were both on Birthright.
Yeah. So Birthright was where I had my bar mitzvah.
Yeah, I had my bar mitzvah there too.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about that. Let's hear about that. How old were you on your Birthright trip?
I was 25.
25, and you had your bar mitzvah.
I had my bar mitzvah. The rabbi had asked, anyone here, this is an auspicious place, to have a bar mitzvah. So is there anyone here who hasn't had a bar mitzvah? And like probably half the boys' hands went up.
Wow.
And so I was, really having a bar mitzvah, and it's going to be, be at the wall. It's like really, so I researched names for a very long time, and it was a really, truly special experience to have my bar mitzvah in Israel. And then I had a bris probably a few years after that.
Whoa. Wow.
Yeah. Not the whole. Right. So I had a bris when I was, I had a circumcision when I was in the hospital, as an infant, but I never had the whole, it wasn't a proper bris. So I at 27, I went through with like a, the proper bris.
Wow. Incredible. And how long was that till you met? How many years ago was that till you now met?
So I'm 30 now. So I went on Birthright 5 years ago. I had my bris about 2 years ago. So yeah, I'd say been observant for about 5 years now.
Wow. Incredible. And Chava, you also found that your trip to Israel was unbelievable?
Yeah. My first trip to Israel, I went on Birthright, and I had my bat mitzvah there. And my trip, we did it on top of Masada. It's really cool. Yeah. And I also got to like choose my Hebrew name. And
what made you choose Chava?
Yeah, it has meanings of like life and also like Hava in the Bible was like mother to like all life, which I always found really cool. Like, I would say I'm a very like nurturing person. It just kind of fit me. And then I chose the middle name Esther after my grandma, because both of the names mean star or like light, like things like that. Yeah. So.
Wow. Interesting. Matt, what name did you choose?
Tzedek, and kind of the same thing. I was looking, and I sort of just I was reading attendant stories, and this story just sort of spoke to me. I gave it a lot of thought. I even called my mom and I asked if there were any Hebrew names in my family. Unfortunately, she didn't know what a Hebrew name was, but but I gave it a lot of thought, and I just decided on a name that sort of meant something to me, just because justice is kind of, I think, the ultimate virtue.
Absolutely. Tzedek, what a beautiful name.
Yeah. So.
Chava and Tzedek, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's interesting because there's so many little details of your story of, people that you met, Chava, the doctor that you met, or the teacher you had, Tzedek, the putting on tefillin, the guys who came around to put on tefillin, inviting you for the Pesach Seder, the Passover Seder, or then, the Shabbat.
Yeah.
It just makes you realize that all of our encounters with people around us are so significant, and this could really change a person's whole perspective and the whole journey of their lives. It could be completely transformed because of our encounters. And I guess that's what's so special about what you want to do in terms of inviting people to your home and passing that on to others.
Yeah.
Wow, incredible. Okay, thank you both so much for joining us tonight. This is again
Thanks for having us.
with Chana, and I'm joined with Chava and Tzedek, and we want to wish you only good things in building a Bayit Ne'aman b'Yisrael, a wonderful home in the Jewish people, a Jewish home, and success with your marriage and your upcoming marriage, and success in building a Jewish home together.
Amen.
This was beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Good night,
everyone.